We need one more chair.
One
There's
more.
one over there.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions,
Also, I want to say, these are wonderful actors, but obviously our lead, Dina, unfortunately couldn't be here, and she really wanted to. So she had to work, but she said we could call her and she could talk to us for a few minutes. So
conference call?
I'm just going to text her, let her know, like, this is up. So everyone, be thinking of your question for Dina, so you'll have something ready when the time comes. But talk amongst yourselves.
Do you have any questions in general or for any
I have
of
a
the
question.
actors or, yeah?
I thought it was really well done, and I really like the culture, because New York City really exemplifies a diversified cultural melting pot. Is there a reason as to why it is that you chose for the characters to be from those two particular countries? Or was it just representative of the people that are found typically in Brooklyn? Because I know Brooklyn's a large population.
It really isn't so much an ideological reason, it's just a lot of practical reasons. Around the time I met someone named Aricia Kutcher, who was produced on the film, I met her on another project, and I really, really liked her name. And I said, like, oh, Aricia, that's similar to in Santeria. It's not exactly goddess, but it's like a deity. Odisha. So I wanted to use her, and she was Ukrainian, and like all Ukrainians, she hated when people mistook her for Russian. So I wanted to use that, and the person I was originally writing the role for, it wasn't the actress who played it, but she was also a redhead. And kind of the cliche is, you're a redhead, you're either Irish or Russian. And I thought, you know, Irish cop's kind of cliche. So yeah, it just became like, how about she's Russian, or specifically Ukrainian, and she's named Aricia. And that just kind of came together based a little bit on my friend. And then the other one, I wanted to use that actress, and she was Sicilian. So it kind of came together, and I know there's a show called Degrassi, which you're a fan of.
Well,
So when I named the character Degrassi, everyone thought it was a reference to that, but it wasn't. It's just the name. So as far as the Italianness, not really. As far as the Ukrainianness, it was because of my friend, and then it ended up tying into the story, because it went through many drafts.
How long did it take?
To film, or the whole thing?
Yeah, so it's a film.
To film 4 days.
Oh, wow.
It was going to be shot early May of last year, so it's going to be a year, I can't believe. And a lot of problems happened in that 1 week, where there was a flood in the location the morning of, and it ruined 2 days of shooting. So we ended up shooting the hospital scene first, and then a month later we shot everything else, which kind of worked. I liked that there was kind of a distancing effect. So yeah, I was talking to you earlier, and you were saying how, oh, you were so organized on the shoot.
Very organized.
And I said, no, that's because you were only there at the hospital.
Right. I know, and I saw that.
And actually, a little later on, after the Q&A, I'm going to show a few videos, like behind the scenes and stuff, and you'll see what it was like those days. Katia.
Hi, Gabe. I was actually quite taken with the fact that every scene will change for me. I will see a little more of something that I missed in my previous viewings. And I wanted to ask, because I've always wanted to ask this question: where did you film the forest?
The most flattering question is, where did you shoot that jungle scene? And I say, the jungles of Long Island.
Really?
Wow. Yeah, I'm doing all the talking. If you guys want to talk about what it was like going to Brittany's house and filming the palm.
Or bamboo.
Bamboo.
yeah, bamboo, yeah.
Yeah, it was literally just a
Yeah.
ditch that we filmed the
Merrick.
jungles.
Yeah, when we did that fight in the future scene, and we were going down in that ditch. It was like a riverbed almost, with rocks and stuff. We had a grate through looking for glass, so we didn't fall onto glass when we were fighting and stuff. And we did that fight a good amount of times. I thought, no, I don't have it anymore. I used to have a picture of my back after that scene. It was pretty badass. I was pretty proud of it, actually.
And you want to mention the Moskowitz family and how...
Oh yeah, they were great. Yeah, and she was, what is she, script supervisor?
Costume designer.
costume designer, but her family, we was in the backyard basically of their house. It led into the woods of this creek, and so I said, I hurt my back, scratched it up. Her mother ended up like mending my wounds. I took a shower in their house. She like totally like bandaged up my back. I ended up leaving my underwear there. She still has my underwear. I grabbed one of the little girl's shirt that I thought was my underwear. And it was a whole ordeal. But they were wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people. I was telling him while we were watching it, when he was cutting off his leg. I remember I was in the shower getting home because I was covered in dirt, and I could hear in the distance. I was like, oh, he must be cutting off his leg right now.
I had to do that take after take.
It was so fun to see you guys cringe at that scene.
I know that. I
Yeah.
said, if he's gonna cut his head off.
It was fun to see.
And by the way, like, all the actors are great, but bravo to Nate for just really screaming and everything. I remember the day we did the hospital scene, we filmed your scenes in the afternoon, and you would not eat lunch because you wanted to look emaciated for your scene. Like, that's how you were. You had a question.
Yep, so just for those who don't know me, my name is Jeffrey Romano. I'm an undergraduate here at Baruch. So my question, first of all, I don't know how you survived the winter in Syracuse, right? Pretty extreme.
Yeah.
And so I was hoping if everyone could kind of just share what were the biggest challenges throughout, maybe during the filming or maybe trying to synchronize with your character, because I definitely reflects there might have not been so much verbal, but just you can tell there was a synchronization between their characters and their body language. So if you guys could just share, some of the maybe challenges and key takeaways from the whole experience. Start.
The biggest challenge for me was filming the hospital scene, the final scene in the beginning, not knowing what was coming, really. I mean, yeah, I had the script, but still didn't quite know what was coming. So filming the final scene first, and then filming the later scenes, the earlier scenes after that, it's, for me, personally, just coordinating in my mind, trying to think, okay, this happens after. So that was the biggest challenge for me. I don't know if I'm putting it into words correctly, but that was the biggest challenge. Filming a future scene in the beginning.
Okay, one of my challenges was, because I was always the caretaker of my family and I played the nurse. So going back in my mind of what I endured, taking care of certain family members, and I applied that to the character to take care of Aricia, sorry, lying there, and all these thoughts came to my mind. I'm like, oh my God, am I looking believable? And do you guys see me as playing this nurse here, even though my scene was minimal, but do you really know that I'm a nurse here? So all these things was going in my mind, plus I was nervous, and I said, you gotta stop that. You have to believe more in yourself that you can do this. You just go back into your families, think about all the times that you had with them when you were taking care of them with the illnesses and whatnot, and you apply it to the character, and I think that's what makes it believable. So that was one of my challenges. And also, trying to look for my nurse's uniform that I had, the shoot that I did, and I found everything just went together for me. So, working with Gabe Rodriguez was incredible. It was, and I had a really great time. Thanks for the opportunity for working with me. But that was one of my challenges, putting it all together.
And the fight choreography was a challenge. I've done a lot on stage, mostly with like foils and stuff like that. But actual filming of a fight scene, it was pretty. I mean, it was all choreographed. Like we had a fight choreographer that was great. Also, for me, finding like a thread between the different timelines and the character, because it's like it's the same essence of the character, basically going through these different time periods. Just trying to find that common thread going through was difficult for me.
Yeah, I would say the challenge, just behind the scenes stuff, like there were delays with shooting. The other question besides where to shoot the jungle scene that I love is how'd you get the cop car, which people assume is tough, but it actually is not. have to go through a lot of hurdles. You have to purchase insurance to then get a permit to then rent a vehicle. And then there's, the NYPD has an actual like movie unit and they supervise you to make sure we don't use the car to rob a bank, whatever.
Carjack it, Gabe.
So like, yeah, even the scenes of the two of them in the car, like we're actually just going around the block. But even that was like a long process because you have to put the car in the same place for each take and you're being supervised as you do it. And you can't really see what the actors are doing. And then there were other things like we had the permit to put the camera on the hood of the car, but not on the sides of the car, which I don't know why there would be two different permits for that. So that's why if you notice in those scenes, you only see the front of the car. You never see the close-ups.
Are you in the back seat?
Yeah. Actually, when I play the blooper reel a little later, you'll see me like popping out of the back seat.
And you were watching on a monitor?
No, I wasn't watching. I was going action. Like I didn't know what they were doing. So there was that, and then there's just a challenge in finishing the film, particularly when it's a film that has kind of an abstract, not quite linear story. So you're not as confident in it, and you don't know if it's going to work. And then you get feedback from different people, and eventually you kind of find your voice, and you go, this is the film I want to tell, and this is how these people react, this is how these people react, and this is how I feel about it. So I think by this point I've now shown enough times that I'm proud of it, and I think just getting there was, a bit of a journey.
You're also the writer?
Yes.
Is that why you can't when you film the cop car, you can't see the license plates on it, or did you take the license plates off?
Because it's a rented car, it probably has a license. I don't know. I think you see the license plate from behind in the first shot, but then
Okay.
yeah, just the way the camera's set up, you don't see it.
I'm gonna have to watch it again.
Yes.
There's
And that's another thing, like, the problem with short films is they tend to only play in festivals and people don't get a chance to see them a second time like they do with feature films. And this is a film that really benefits from second and third viewing, so
Yeah.
I'm glad you can, attest to that. And
Because remember when, the last screening, I couldn't see the bullet wound? I didn't notice the bullet wound, and today I actually saw the bullet wound. Happy.
Also differences in projections, it's always going to be a little different. Like when we started playing, I started playing it off Vimeo, and I had to switch to DVD. If we had been able to see it on Vimeo, you would have seen it in HD, which I had really hoped you would get to see. But as Martin Scorsese says, the auteur of the movie is the guy in the projection room, because the movie's going to look different each time you screen it. You were going to say something?
No, I wanted to ask you,
Yes.
what gave you the idea of writing about Afghanistan, someone who had been there?
Mm-hmm.
How did you decide to write about that?
It is, the story of the writing process is actually very long. It started out as an actor friend wanted me to write basically a vehicle for him and his girlfriend to star in. His girlfriend was the redhead I mentioned earlier. And he said like, oh, I like cops and I like World War II. So I kind of had to put that together, and time travel was the way to do that. And specifically, like, we wanted to make a statement about like how veterans were mistreated. So what I was going for in the story was to kind of contrast the modern day veteran with a veteran of a more esteemed war, and you saw the difference. And also the main character had a connection as well, because there's a connection between a police officer and a soldier, because cops are soldiers and the NYPD is a militaristic organization. In fact, like people would say like, well, why'd you make them cops? Why didn't you make them detectives? That would have been so much easier. The uniforms, the cars, it would have been cheaper. And the answer is, thematically, I felt it was important that they be cops. Even if it didn't affect the plot literally, it helped that she was a cop. And also just, I wanted the movie to stand out. I wanted people to go, ooh, you got a cop car. So that was the first draft, and the actor looked at it, and he was like, yeah, okay, and he put it on the back burner, and he didn't make it. So I decided to take it and develop it further. And I went to another friend of mine who fought in, what was happening in the 80s?
Desert Storm or?
No, Lebanon in the 1980s. So he wanted to like make it all about that, and he said, "Oh, drop World War II and just make it the current war." And I thought you kind of needed the World War II thing that made it unique to me. Also, I had like, you know, epic battle scenes that there was no way we could ever film, like, you know, the landscapes of World War II with hundreds of extras. People were like, yeah, you can't do that. So the finished draft was a compromise of all these ideas, and it was, okay, how can we convey World War II but with just one scene in a minimalist way and have a little bit of the current war and something else. And what I like about how the finished thing came out is that it could have been like just very like preachy parable where, you know, the main character like doesn't like veterans, and then she has an experience and she learns a lesson and she preaches it to the audience. And then you could have had the opposite end of the spectrum where it's just a very visual style over substance movie that's very shallow. And what I like is that it's really in the middle, and it is this parable, and it has this middle section that is a little abstract and a little, the audience may not exactly know what's going on, but it never gets lost. And then at the end, she grows as a character. Not so much how she views veterans, but she has changed herself as a cop. And, you know, like some people say like, oh, she shouldn't have that little speech at the end because you're preaching to the audience. But I feel that speech needs to be there because if it wasn't there, it would kind of get lost. So to me, like, I really like the heart of the story. Yes, there's the soldiers, but it's really, she changes, and she's the body and soul. And also it's a story about storytelling, and that's why it begins with Once Upon a Time and it ends with the two of them bonding over a story.
And can I ask you something else? Would you ever consider doing a feature film? Because I think this story can really be developed. The characters, yeah, they're there. You know, it's,
I've been telling you guys this for a while. I've been viewing this as a TV pilot, actually, to continue her adventures and specifically her bond with him. I think the way it is now, it works as a short film. I don't think it quite works as a TV pilot. I think with television, like, you kind of have to explain things a little better. So I've actually written a TV pilot. Originally it was going to be a sequel to this, and then I realized, you know, combine this with the sequel and I had something stronger. So the pilot would be 50% remake of this 50% new material. And it would be what happens afterward, and specifically the bond between your two characters. But yes, like, that has been a standard thing. People say, like, they want more of this. Yes?
When watching it just now, what occurred to me was that you're representing minority groups that want their voice to be heard, which occurs to me to be along the lines of the theme of Shades of Grey, in terms of the fact that there are two female police officers, which are, you know, greatly underestimated and underserved, rather, in the community of the New York City area. And then, you know, to also have that in contrast with the two men who were the soldiers, it seems like that Shades of Grey is in there. Was that kind of along your lines of thinking when you were initially saying, oh, I want to have two female cops, or were you toying with the idea of one female cop and one male cop, or like?
That actually was one of the things me and that original actor kind of clashed on, because from the beginning to me it was two female cops. And actually, a few people who read the script, that was what they liked. They said, I like that scene one, it's two female cops in a car, and that gets my attention. But then the guy, he wanted to make one of them male. He said, oh, that's more realistic, and already that kind of changed the dynamic I wanted. And yeah, like, I kind of like that the police world was this female world, and the soldiers was a male world. Kind of not intended, but we realized that. I don't know, like, you can analyze it in other genderish ways. Like, I like the fact that she starts out as a very gruff cop, like kind of the cliche of the female cop, and she becomes more maternal and more the attributes we associate with a goddess. As it goes on, she becomes more gentle and nurturing. You know, she kind of goes from entering a room with the gun drawn, kind of mindlessly into violence, to witnessing one very silent act of violence and being touched by that. So yeah, that gender issue's there. As far as other minorities, I wasn't really considering that. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm actually from Bushwick, in Brooklyn. Is there any connection to why you chose that community to focus on, or is it something that,
Well, my previous film was called Havana in Bushwick, and that started because I went to a New Year's Eve party in Bushwick, and there's just a great artistic vibe there, and it also has such a great artist name. Like afterward, I went like Havana in Bushwick. That just has a nice ring to it, in a way that like Havana in Brooklyn doesn't. So that was that film, and then like the next film I made after that, like there was just a scene like. I had to put like little title at the bottom just saying like this scene is in Brooklyn, and I decided Bushwick, Brooklyn. And then for this film I just did it again, like they're in the car and she says, oh, there aren't any Cuban restaurants in Bushwick, reference to the last film. And then I just kept that, so she mentions Bushwick again later. So it's kind of just a building thing, like probably my next film will be set there again.
Okay.
So you're not from Brooklyn?
No, when Havana and Bushwick was coming out, everyone assumed that. They were like, oh, so you're probably from Bushwick. And I'm like, no, the first time I went there was that party. The second time I went there was to plan the film. The third time I went there was to shoot the film.
Gave that to you, probably.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's cool.
Sorry.
Let's give it up for Nate. If anyone has any other questions, I thought maybe we can try calling Dina.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I have to take a photo first.
Yeah.
Perfect. One more.
Thank you.
We do one more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so does everyone have a question for Gina planned?
Ask them first before you call her.
Yeah.
You do?
You do?
That's what we're doing.
Oh. Yeah.
No, no. Well, maybe she just wants to say hello. We enjoyed her performance. She's the,
Lee.
yeah, she was very good. Yeah.
Oh.
Ah.
It should give you the voice, yeah, we should have scream at it. Great job.
hi Dina,
You would also say hi, Dina?
Hi, Dina.
Okay. Now?
Hi, Dina, that was the audience, and they all really loved you. Oh, wait, I think she's calling us.
No, that's awkward.
Hey! What?
Speaker.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hi, yeah, I'm running like a minute to talk, so.
Okay, so people here want to talk to you. Hey!
Great job!
Hey everyone, how are you?
Good.
We love
You
you
were
in the
great.
town.
Yeah, thank you.
We
How
love
did
you.
you-
That was good.
How did you prepare for the role? How did you prepare for the role?
Oh, well, I watch a lot of talk shows. Well, I did a lot of research on the history of Orynthia's character, about where she's from, and had a lot of help with that. And yeah, just I've been looking at some projects that are kind of, in the face of the realm of fighting and combat. So I was go prepare for that, and just have a game by my side.
All right, well, I know you have to go, but is there any final thing you want to say about how much you love this film? Oh. Hello?
Technology.
Wait. Hey, you there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, well, first off, I want to say I love this film. It's a great experience, and it's been wonderful. And the accolades it's getting just proof of what a great team we have, what a wonderful director Dave is. And, we have another project coming up together, Ready Prom Night. And I'm just excited to continue and build this relationship with Dave and my other castmates. And, I'm very blessed and happy. So,
No.
Okay, Dina, we're gonna let you go now.
You said you wanna play the
Okay.
deleted scene?
Yes.
Or bloopers?
All right.
Or you got a blooper
Is there
roll?
any final thing you guys want to say while you're up here?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
It's such an honor that you guys are here to watch
Yeah.
this
A
movie.
beautiful
Thank
campus.
you. And I have to go, I'm sorry. I
Have a
have
good
someone
evening.
upstairs waiting. Thank you, thanks for coming. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Want to put this chair back?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get them back. Don't worry.
Put them back?
We'll put them back.
I just want to do.
I can send you that photo.